Kevin Harvick completes the Brickyard sweep, pole, laps, and victory for his third win in his last 7 starts this season. The 2019 playoffs begin this week in Las Vegas, and we have the latest championship odds as well as the odds for this week's South Point 400. And we'll give you our picks for the round of 16, the Final Four, and who will win it all in Homestead. All this and more on Prime Sports NASCAR on the Prime Sports Radio Network, brought to you by RaceReviewOnline.com, RotoWire.com, and Covers.com. Make sure to visit Covers Experts at experts.covers.com, and you can take 50% off any purchase by using the promo code PRIME50. That's PRIME50. And I'm going to bring in now for our first segment today, CJ Radoon. So, CJ, the playoffs are upon us.
Playoffs are finally here. Been waiting all year for it. It's about time. Ready to get underway.
Stoked. The hottest driver is now Kevin Harvick. Doesn't this seem to happen, though? It's a long season, and before his 3 wins in his last 7 starts, it was one of those just weird seasons for Harvick because he was in the top 5 pretty much all year in points, but he wasn't leading a lot of laps, and when he did lead laps, there would be issues. So I guess they've corrected everything, even though he still hasn't. I mean, this past race was his first dominant race, but it is the Brickyard. We've seen boring, dominant races before, and let's also keep in mind he got lucky on pit road.
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of things go his direction, but I think that's a lot of the reason why he wasn't that successful in the beginning part of the year. I mean, none of us doubted him on the show at the beginning. So he, like you said, he was always in top 5, top 10. He was always in contention just for whatever reason. You know, the Joe Gibbs guys had the edge on him, and he wasn't able to get it done. Indy is a different track, but it's not like Kevin Harvick can't win on any other track that's on this schedule either. So, yeah, he definitely wrested the momentum away. But still, Joe Gibbs Racing, those Toyotas, they still look very, very difficult to beat.
All right, so let's take a look at where the standings are right now. And Kyle, of course, is still at the top. Now, he has a 45-point – there's a 45-point difference between Kyle, who's first, and Ryan, who's last at 16th. Does that mean that there is –
correct.
Is that so far – and I'm just going to be hypothetical. We know it's not going to happen. But would Ryan Newman or Clint Boyer, who are both in tied basically for last, would either one of them theoretically be able to take over Kyle Busch after 3 rounds, after 3 races? Just Kyle.
Theoretically, mathematically, yes, they could. However, highly unlikely. Busch would have to basically drop out on the first lap of each of the next 3 races, and those guys would have to come forward and 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I mean, it's mathematically possible.
All right, so give me a driver or an area there where one of those bottom drivers, hypothetically, but realistically, you know, if they won a race, all top 10s, and one of those drivers somewhere at the top did not have a top 5 or maybe just one top 10, and maybe they DNF'd a race. You know, which one, how far could they advance in just 3 races?
Honestly, I think, somebody like a Boyer, Almirola, Byron, Newman, they could probably come up inside the top 10. They could probably move forward a good 4 or 5 positions. I think realistically, though, you've got the top 16 guys that have been in the top 16 for the entire season. The likelihood of 10 of them all suffering problems. I mean, unless we go to Talladega and you have that big accident and they all get caught up in it. But I mean, the likelihood, in all likelihood, I think you're going to see the best performing of those bottom 4 maybe move up 4 or 5 positions within the standings.
Driver that is not, let's go to cutoff point being Kyle Larson. So let's start at Bowman down. No, I'm not even going to throw. I tell you what, I'm not even going to put Jones and Blaney in there. That's too easy.
Yep.
So between Bowman, Byron, Almirola, Boyer, Newman, which one of those drivers do you feel the most confident that could get hot and really make an impact?
Probably Blaney. To be honest,
let's not put Blaney in there. Let's remove Blaney and Jones. He was too easy. I'm making this difficult.
Oh, we're not. All right. Well, then
No, he
what
doesn't
about
count
Larson
either.
though? You got to take
He's out.
Larson out of that too. So I think if you're
Bowman,
there,
so
you go.
Bowman,
Exactly
Byron,
right. So
Almirola, Boyer, Newman.
yeah, then
That's it.
it's probably. Yeah, it's probably between
Okay.
Almirola and Boyer, to be honest with you, because they've got their teammate Kevin Harvick that is performing really well, and a rising tide lifts all ships, and that's their teammate, and so I would see one of
All
them being
right.
able to pull
Now,
it
as
forward.
far as so we've got your preseason picks here, and we are going to get into the race as well in just a little bit. But let's take a look at
Oh,
your preseason picks. And do you remember what your preseason picks were?
see how far off I am.
Let's see.
I probably went heavy on Keselowski, probably went heavy on Harvick, and probably Kyle as well.
All right. Well, you had Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, Harvick, and Keselowski. That was your final four.
Yep.
And your champion was Keselowski.
Yep. So Elliott was the one that
and you want to know who your sleeper was?
Yep.
It was the same sleeper for me and for Eric. We all had the same sleeper. It shows you how smart we are. Denny Hamlin.
Oh, no That's kidding. Right. How about that?
We're pretty smart, aren't we?
Good. Yeah.
That's right.
I'll take it.
Okay. We did.
We nailed that one.
I do get a little concerned when everybody jumps on the anybody's bandwagon, and I haven't seen any of the shows that are predicting the playoffs, but come on, I mean, I bet you 90% of the analysts are going to be picking Denny Hamlin.
Yeah, he's an easy choice. I mean, the Joe Gibbs organization as a whole has just dominated the season. 13 wins among them. Denny Hamlin tied with Busch and Truex. Maybe he got off to a slightly slower start, but he's been Mr. Consistency throughout the vast majority of the season. Definitely, he's a streaky driver, and he's come on strong. So he's an easy pick at this point.
Let's get your picks for the playoffs first. Give me your new Final four. First of all, you know what? Give me the four drivers you think will not make it out of the round of 16.
Yeah, so the round of 16 I find pretty easy to knock out the bottom four. So I'm going to say Bowman is not going to make it. Byron is not going to make it. Almirola is not going to make it, and neither is Clint Boyer.
Okay. And I had three of the same. The only difference is I had Newman. You have Byron. Okay. Your final four.
Okay. You got to go with Joe Gibbs at this point. So it's definitely Denny Hamlin. Like I said, he's an easy choice. Kyle Busch, I'll put Truex in there. And then it's going to be one of the Fords that's going to have to come in and upset that team rivalry somehow. So then I'm looking at the two Penske guys, and Logano and Keselowski, and Mr. Kevin Harvick. And given how strong Harvick has come on at the end of the year, I might swap Keselowski out for Harvick.
All right.
At this point.
He was your preseason pick, so you might as well stick with him, right? Put him in the final four. All right. So Kyle Busch, Hamlin, Truex, Keselowski. Yep. So you don't have any sleepers making the final four. Give me then your top sleeper.
My new sleeper. Let's go with Kurt Busch. I think he's had some good performances this year. I think he's been relatively consistent. I think at this point it's Kurt Busch. He could come in with some surprise wins, and that could push him through right to the final, and then.
Yeah, Kurt is sitting right now at, what is he, 16-1 to win the championship. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and go over. No, not bad at all, especially for a former champ. He is having, and I agree with you as far as why you're picking Kurt, because I think that this is the first time in years, really, that I could remember that I felt this strongly that Kurt Busch could win the championship again.
Sure. Yeah, I
Why do you
don't
think that
disagree one
is?
bit.
What changes occurred? Was it? I mean, obviously, it's got to be the team, the overall, the new team that he is on right now
Yeah.
compared to his single team and some of the other things he's had to go through. Where, he hasn't really been on a team this strong in a while.
No, he hasn't. And I think he's got a really good teammate in Kyle Larson, who's had a lot of success in the team in seasons prior. So I think the team overall has elevated its game. We've always seen Kurt Busch in new surroundings be able to take off and make an impact. And, a fresh start sometimes is what does him best. And with somebody like Larson on his side, as far as a teammate goes, Ganassi's not a small team, and they're not a team that can't correct the problems that they might run into. They can overcome things, and I think he joined them right at the perfect time, just as they were starting to get on a wave of momentum, making the changes that would push them up forward, and Kurt Busch came in and took advantage of it.
Let's talk about, in the closing couple of minutes here, let's talk about this South Point 400 race at Las Vegas. And they had the race real early in the season in March.
Yep.
And your pick, you had the third pick out of our trio, and you went with the favorite. So, I mean, really the three of us took the top three drivers, which we haven't done very often this year. But you took Kyle at 4-1 as your top pick. Would he have been your top pick if you had the first pick?
Probably would have been. It's tough. I may have actually gone with Kyle Busch, but one of the Fords, whether it would have been Logano, Keselowski, or Harvick, but Kyle Busch just kind of had the edge for me because he's been out of victory lane too long. He's going to win at some point. Now that the playoffs are started, he's got a very comfortable position in terms of the points gap that he's got to the back, but I think he still wants to win, and he'd like to be able to wrap up his pass to the next round as quickly as possible.
And now, I guess we're going to get your sleeper, of course, off the air because I've got to chastise Eric. He must have been doing, I don't know what he was doing, but he was asleep at the wheel.
I've got the last.
What was that?
Yes. I've got the last pick, so I've got to wait for you guys to go before me before I can figure out what's left to choose from.
Who would you take? Who would be your top sleeper?
I don't know. Chase Elliott's pretty good. So there are a handful that are out there for sure. But Elliott was a top 10 here earlier in the season. I'm going to kind of stay away from somebody who's like an Eric Almirola for sure. I don't think Ricky Stenhouse is going to be able to do what he was able to do. Kurt Busch is up there too as well. I mean, he was a top 5 here earlier this season too. So certainly pick him from that pool.
All right, CJ. So what do we got? Next week it's Richmond, and then it's the Roval in Charlotte. So and next week Saturday night, right?
Let me check on that. It should be. Yeah, Saturday night. Very exciting. Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Looking good. A night race at Richmond. It's nice to have a night short track race.
Yeah, that's right.
Too bad it's Richmond.
Well, at least it doesn't. At least it's not the final race before the playoffs anymore. That was always a bummer. That didn't really help out anything. Next year is Daytona, right?
Yeah. Roval is very exciting.
Yeah, Roval was exciting last year. We'll see if we can continue that trend again in a couple of weeks. But are these the only 2 night races of the playoffs the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, until we get to Miami. I mean, that usually ends late at night. Yeah, they usually end that one late at night. It starts during the day, but this is the last night race of the season.
Tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing at rotowire.com for the race and the playoffs.
Yeah, so we're going to have a special focus on the playoffs for picks for this, obviously the first round for the round of 16. So we'll have focus on those 16 drivers that made it, getting ready for your fantasy lineups this weekend. After the race, obviously on Mondays, maybe Sunday night, Monday morning, we'll have the recap of the race, again, focusing on those drivers that maybe have fallen. Maybe they fell out. Maybe they're in the bottom zone already. But we'll focus on those guys who are at the bubble and then obviously those who are the front runners as well. So we'll have a championship-focused preview for fantasy lineups as well as the race recap 24 hours after it's done on Road.
Excellent.
wire.com.
CJ, appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.